Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leftovers. I'm the alleged host, Sean, with my co-host, Matt. And tonight we have the luxury and joy of Stephen Glicker joining us from Roll from Combat. We've been actually talking a lot about interviewing him. We're not trying to blow his ego up or anything. We're just trying to get some insight into his vast knowledge. So, thank you, Steve, and thank you for joining us. Matt, you want to get into anything real quick before we let Steve take the reel?
Just a couple of real quick announcements, and then we'll hop right in. So just want to remind everybody that we are next Tuesday. You can catch episode 2 of our latest live show, Murders and Mavens. That'll be next Tuesday night on AARPG Live. If you haven't had a chance to catch the character creation in the beginning of that story, you can go and check that out on our YouTube channel. Other than that, we should have another episode of our Dragon Bane is coming out, I think, either this week or next week. So we're looking forward to releasing that. And today, Nathan and I had an interview with Thomas Harrison from Free League Publishing talking about the 2 new Dragon Bane books that are currently on the Kickstarter, both the Magic book and their first urban setting. So as soon as Nathan gets the editing done for that, we'll have that out there too. So keep an eye on it. And that's all I've got, Sean. Back to you.
Okay. So before we get into Roll for Combat, and as everybody knows, I preface my guests with this. We're going to do a little dive into their background. So Steve, I'd like you. Steve is good, right? Steve, okay?
Yeah, Stephen.
Okay, Stephen. So when did you start? Like, what drew you to like TTRPG as we call it now, and what game system was it? How old were you? And give a time frame for some of our guests because they might be before they were born.
It's okay. This is an age-forward friendly show.
By the way, I'll be 57 next month, folks.
Yes. No, I feel like a spring chicken next to you guys. Because I started because I'm not that old. I'm a little younger. No, I started in 1977 when I was 7 years old. So, and I still have actually right here. I still have
blue box.
I don't have the box. But I still have my original books.
Oh, yes. Oh, beautiful. I have those same books.
They're still in really good shape. And the
Monster Manual is still good.
I still have my name and address in there.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, God. We all used to do that.
Right. You just doxed yourself.
No, not really. That's my name and address and phone number from 1977. So I don't think you have to worry about that. So it's funny. They're in all my books. And in fact, It was so long ago in my high school, actually it was my middle school, is that we weren't in the Dungeons and Dragons Club. It was actually the Dragons and Dungeons Club. That's what they listed it as goodness. Because no one knew what it was like. I still remember that. I was so excited. And then I was like, man, they got it wrong. But it's actually pretty funny. So yeah, that's when I started. But back then it was like, and I still have all my dragons upstairs. It's like, we were playing everything though. It's like, this D&D was just one of lots, it was like Top Secret and Gamma Worlds and Bushido and, and James Bond and Traveler. Like there was just so many, and we played a lot of Car Wars back then. And
Car Wars.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, there was just games like, D&D was just one of many, and we just played them all. We just played every type of game you can find. So
we did just a recent Top Secret game based on the old system. It was we had a good time with it. So you start your 7 broad-eyed bushy tailed. You survived the satanic panic of the 80s.
Well, I live in New York.
Oh, you're a
that did not.
Yeah, you didn't have that.
No, I did not have that. I live right outside Manhattan. My parents they're pretty cool. Like we had cable back in like the 70s, and we had a VHS player like in 70. It was like this big, and it had a remote that was actually connected with a wire. I think they got it in 75. Like, and my dad was really hip, so they couldn't give a crap about that stuff. And
dude, I had a Betamax. Remember those?
Yeah, I remember. Betamax was the superior technology, but it wasn't. I won't get into the whole reason by that. But anyhow, yeah, and then I even got like an Apple II Plus back in like 82, and I'm more into video games than they did into.
I remember that.
You're like all my friends.
Basically.
Yeah.
I remember people.
His dad had
stuff
Super TV, right? Like it was the first
Super
cable.
TV?
It was called Super TV.
That was down here.
That's
in
what
Maryland,
we had. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then my other buddy, his dad worked for I think it was IBM or Apple, one of them way back when, and he had the first like computer. Like we had like Atari 2600 and everything, but he had like a computer, and he had this game called like Age of War or something like that. And it was the most like I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like you have this like computer that plays games, Yeah, no, that's
actually, that's what I quote do for a living is, I actually went to school for computers and have a company that like we build Fortune 500 websites, and that's kind of what I've been doing for the last like 30 plus years. So that's actually what I really did. And I was always into gaming, and then, this sort of blew up, and now it's become more of my full-time job over the last 7 years. But it's like I started with gaming, and then I got way more into computers, like way more into computers.
Yeah.
And then went to Carnegie Mellon and just rode the internet. Like, I was on the internet since '86 and just ran with that. And, so I was there at the very beginning. The internet, it's like I said, people, the internet was so small when I was on it that we actually all knew each other, and people are like, ha ha ha. I'm like, no, actually, that's how big it was. Like, it was that big. Like, the only people who were on it were a couple of colleges. Microsoft was on it, and the government, and IBM, and that was it. And it's like, it was really tiny. And the bulletin boards, because that was all there was. There's no web. Like, you would go to the bulletin boards, and you would see, oh, there's 10 new posts today. Like, that's it. It was like, there just wasn't that many people on it. I mean, it was, probably a couple tens of thousands, but not everyone posted every day. But yeah, it was great.
Oh my gosh, boards. I remember boards. My buddy Chris, I don't know what he was doing with it. He was like the first person, I don't even know if they had the term hacker, right? But he had like this system. He'd get onto boards he wasn't supposed to. He was using, his dad was a doctor. His dad had a multi-line phone.
Yep.
No one ever heard of that. And he would, whatever he was doing on his computer, he would literally hang his power supply out the window to keep it cool. So I don't know what Chris, but he was like the first, like he was all into like getting into stuff and like.
Oh yeah, I used to do that too. I had two. My dad was a doctor, and we had two lines growing up, and that was a big deal. So I got one, and we got a modem. I got a 300 baud instead of the crappy 120 baud, and then we'd call and I had friends who would host their own BBSs like on their computers, and then we'd call in, and I was there from like the ancient days, of like, and that's really what I was much bigger into is video games and computers. I always did this on the side, and I got heavily back into role playing because I lived in Manhattan, and I got a group, and we all would just go to our friend's house, and like we just would play. And so, we just would play in person. It's actually the same people I still play with today. We just line because none of us, only one of us lives in New York. We all live all over the country now. But at the time, we just would go to his house and play all night or all day, and just like, and
it's the same story. Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting how, and I know about you, but like most of my closest friend group is the college gaming group. And then some new people have come, some people have left, right? We've all moved around the country, but at its core, in fact, even our podcast is also, which is, I think when I first started listening to you, I think it was the connection I made was like, oh, here's some folks, they're old friends, they've been playing forever, and now they're doing this, kind of a show thing. And this was kind of our thing too. We've been playing for like 40 years, some of us together, and it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, actually, they weren't even college friends. Well, one's Jason's a college friend. The rest of them, here's the other kicker. If you want to get super geeky, I met them at a Magic the Gathering tournament.
Oh wow,
93, 94, back in alpha and beta, like back in the day. So that's how I met. That's actually my current group of friends. That's how I met them. I literally met them at a Magic the Gathering tournament in New York City. So
that's awesome.
that is funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you go to computers, you get back, you're doing gaming with your friends, you're in a group which is the way we did it, folks. And and then somehow the idea comes out, hey, let's go online. How did that said, let's do this and let the world see it? How did that come about?
Yeah, because nowadays it's inundated, right? But it was not a huge
no, it wasn't
back then.
Yeah. So what happened is, so I was into podcasting. I actually, I used to have a podcast called Gaming Steve 20 years ago. How about that? So it was actually one of the most popular podcasts.
Incredible.
Yeah, it was one of the most popular podcasts around. And we used to get over and this is 20 years ago, used to get over 100,000 listeners per episode, which I know now that's a lot. Back then, that was just like unheard of. And
it's everybody.
pretty much. It was a lot. But I had like small kids and it was a lot of work. You can still listen to them. They're online. And I was, again, just big into the video game world, and I'd be going to E3 and I was interviewing, well, everyone really, like, like anyone in the video game world. And I was really big into video games. And John Stats, who's on the show, he actually was the lead of World of Warcraft at Blizzard. So I had a million connections. So it was like really just heavy into video games and podcasting. And then we were playing every week, and we did it online because, as I said, like I build websites and do computers. So for me, it was really a no-brainer to go online. Like back then, actually, these computer programs were pretty hacky. I used D20 Pro, which I had to have code that thing to get it to work half the time. But because I'm a coder, I was able to go in and literally just hack it and get it to do what I wanted it to do. And we got pretty good at it, and I got really good at it. And my friends like didn't mind, and they're all technically savvy, so we started to play online. And then because we played World of Warcraft so much, we were good with like TeamSpeak, and we were good at rating, and we knew all the online ways to get together. So through World of Warcraft, so we just used all those technologies and methods and combined it and started to play online. And I was begging them. This is actually what happened. I was telling them, we should do a podcast. We should record this every week. We should do this. This was back in like 2010, 11, 12, but no one was doing it.
You were a visionary. That's why.
I was already doing podcasting. I already had hundreds of episodes. So to me, it was, I had the equipment. Yeah. I knew how to do it. Uh-huh. To me, it was a no-brainer. I can build the website. Like, I had literally a group that works for me. So, it's like the technology, all the things that everyone else has issues with, I already had
worked out.
And I had the people. The problem is we had one guy who refused to do it. It's actually Bob. And he's actually on the early shows, and he refused to do it. He did not want to be online. He did not want to become famous or any of that stuff. Right. And I was saying to them for years, and they just refused. The other guys didn't care. And then I was listening, and Glass Cannon came on, and Glass Cannon was such a big deal. And I literally said, okay, guys, I'm doing this. And if you don't want in, then too bad, because I'm doing it. And we're going to start. At the time, Pathfinder 1, we played it to death. And I was pretty much done with Pathfinder. I mean, I was like, we played 3.0, we played 3.5, we played Pathfinder, and we played so many games, and we played Adventure Pass that I was like, you know what? You always get the same gear. It's like, it was really becoming very rote. And I was like, and then Starfinder was announced. And I was like, this is a great time. We'll start with Starfinder. We'll start with something no one knows anything about. We'll just start fresh. And then Bob's like, okay, And of course, Bob ends up being like the most popular. The guy didn't want to.
That's what I was going to say.
The most popular character on the show by far.
He was excellent, right?
I know.
Randy Carter, right? Or no, am I getting Rusty Carter? Rusty Carter.
Yes.
Right. What a great. He's a great character, and without spoiling it, though, I would say that something that happens early in that campaign to him really changed the course of that character, right?
Yeah.
And so, I totally, and he did come back though for a couple episodes in Agents of Edgewatch, right?
He comes back. I mean, he's basically, he didn't want to do it anymore. He did it, but he didn't want to do it. He also had a lot of things going on in his real life. He had to take care of his mom and stuff. So he just didn't have the time. And then, so I've been getting people in and out, but we played that to completion, we played, what was the
Dead Sons?
Dead Sons. I always forget the name of it. Dead Sons to the end, and that was great, and we had a lot of fun. And it's also, you got to really listen like how we played, because these guys, were pretty hardcore, but they're very good at getting out of jams. Like, I used to do competitive D&D, and we used to test, these guys would test the competitive D&D for Goodman Games back at the DCC when it was a competitive. We used to test them, and these guys would literally bleed encounters and be fine. And then I would run these at Gen Con, and the other tables would just get destroyed. And I was like, man, these guys are bleeding encounters. My guys, and they're fine. And I'm seeing people play one encounter and they're just getting wiped. I mean, these guys have been playing forever, and I call them professional gamers. And they're also pretty smart. So they know all the tricks. They know. One of them's an actual lawyer. Jason is probably the smartest person I've ever met. Like you
got a rules lawyer who's a lawyer.
Yeah, you're right. He literally is a lawyer. So like these guys, and Chris Beamer, who's on the show, this guy has been playing since like 75, and he's from Manhattan, and he used to wear his dice bag on his belt in the subway. I mean, these guys are. And then John, is a professional dungeon designer for World of Warcraft. Like, these guys are as pro as you can get. So they're very good. They're really, really good. And they're hard to kill.
Well, that was one thing I noted when I started listening to Dead Sons was, one, there's a whole sort of spectrum on how actual plays are, right? Mm-hmm. And I would say you guys, again, my connection is you guys do what I call for your core group, role play light, right? Mm-hmm. So you'll do some voices, you'll do some role play, but it's not a theatrical group, right? But you're very much into the mechanics, and you definitely, when you listen to the early episodes, all of you are learning the system, and it was really interesting to see how you work through each problem. And you talk about hard to kill, and I'm going to get it wrong, but some of the weird things I remember, I wish I could remember normal things, is it was in Dead Sons, they were trapped by some creature that they couldn't hurt. It was some kind of, I don't know if it was a hologram or some AI, and the guy who plays Tuttle had this weird grenade that creates like a port. Like he was in an inescapable way. And he completely got everybody out. And it was like, oh my gosh.
Well, that was it. It was that he bought, it was like a teleportation grenade. And they were stuck. And I was like, man, what are they going to do? And then Jason is like, can I see outside? And I'm like, yeah, there's like a little pinhole. He goes, okay, can I take my teleportation grenade and throw it through the hole to the outside, and then we can like get out of here? And I was like, yes. And they did, and they escaped. And I was like, wow, like what it's like, what a, they just use everything at their disposal. And even I remember that, because that was a wow moment. There's a lot of wow moments in that adventure, and it's like, damn, man.
You know what though? It's people, when you've been doing it for a while, and you got experienced people doing it, and it's like, you get that, I find it interesting. You've got people to transform, because this is something Matt and me talked about quite a few times, from a video game system to like, hey, let's go do this type of thing online, to get them to go like TTRPG. I think that's pretty interesting, and how you transition them into that, even a one holdout. But yeah, it's always great to have experienced gamers. Now, mind you, I just listened to the Agents of Death Watch, but I thought you had the one encounter with the spectral figure and a crystal ball. I'll just say something underneath of it.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And basically, what it is, folks, if they try to get something, they can go all or nothing. So it's like there's a card underneath the ball. There's a ball. It's a crystal. It's a very unique item. So they go, why don't we just take the card and we'll pin this and come back later and get it? So they're just marking everything on a map, literally, in the game. Like, wow, that's some people that are just dungeon crawling experts, right? And they get around it's just the experience. I don't know how to explain it. You could just tell people this thing's going to do this. We need to do this and this and this. And it's just sort of like, it's interesting flow, right?
You never know what your players are going to do.
Yeah, you never know what they're going to do, because you have all this experience. And it's not metagaming, guys. It's not metagaming, because they're doing what they think their character would know, because they played for so long.
No, these guys are good. I mean, the funny thing is, and I joke about this, but like, this is the same group that I used to play with when I was in my 30s. and we used to get into fights, and people are like, ha ha ha, and I'm like, no, really,
real
like
fights.
fist, like actual fist fights,
almost choking each other out. Yeah,
and so Chris is 6'4", I'm like 5'6". Chris is 6'4", Seth is 6'6". Okay, like these guys are gigantic. It's like, but I also have 3 black belts. So we used to, it was like, and this would be an apartment like the size of, it was like, had an apartment where all 5 of us are in this itty bitty teeny tiny space. And it was crazy. And we used to really, it was bad, man. And it's funny, now it's the same guys, and we're just like, forget it. You can tell we're old and grizzled. We're like, yeah, it's not worth it. Like, we used to be so passionate, and now we're just like, we've seen it all.
I'm trying to explain that, but that's guys, basically. It's like you get in a big fight, and then like an hour later, you're having a beer, going, man, what was that about?
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, actually, I didn't speak to Chris for a while, and I didn't speak to Seth for a while. Believe it or not,
right.
Yeah, for a couple years even. But then now we're older and we're all like, wiser and not worth it. Like, what the hell? We don't even remember. Like, what were we even fighting about? Who cares?
We're all just wrong.
Right. We're just might as well just have fun while we can. So who cares about that? Like when you're in your 20s and living in Manhattan.
We all think we know we're right about everything, and we're
right. And now we're just like, let's get together and play. And we're almost done. I mean, we would have been done a long time ago, but realistically, like they're level 20 in Agents of Edgewatch. I don't do it on a podcast anymore, but you can watch it online. It's on YouTube, and it's on YouTube through podcasts. And I won't get into it. It's just, it was taking me a lot of time to edit the episodes, and I think we had like 500-600 episodes. And then people are like, where is it? I'm like, it's online. You can watch it or listen to it. You can listen to YouTube. And a lot of people who want to keep listening to it can listen to it there, and that's what they do. We're on the very last dungeon. Like, we're literally in the last dungeon.
Oh, wow.
And they're level 20. And just this last week, they were like, all right, guys, what are you going to do? And no one will do anything. And then Seth's like, he's like, here we are, we're level 20, and we're still acting like we're level 1. I'm like, yeah, because you're fighting things that are level 23. And at the end, because Pathfinder is so balanced, like, this will just destroy you, man. Like, it's like you will die. And these fights are just as deadly at level 20 as they are at level 1. And they're just really epic, and they're really fun.
Well, it makes there's like, you talked about in your just recent podcast about, you were talking about D&D Beyond and how D&D is like so hard to get killed, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then, like, we were playing Dragonbane, which you're familiar with. And Dragonbane, like, the first time we were playing, a couple of us almost died from swimming.
Yeah, cold water
will kill you
dangerous
faster than anything. Because if you don't swim and you take damage so fast and fatigue, you could drown.
Yeah.
And we were like, holy crap. And then, like, one of us got attacked by something and and 2 of the other characters were like, I'd be dead now. And they were like, it was refreshing. It was refreshing to have that level. It makes you more cautious and use your head more.
Yeah, I will say it's kind of amazing because we've had dozens of like roll or die moments in these games, and everything's out in the open. And these games are live, so there's no fudging. Like, I do all my rolls out unless they're secret. I do everything out in the open. They do everything out in the open. There is no fudging, and every single time they get through. And it's really I'm actually kind of stunned. I don't know. I can't even count the number of times where it's lit. And this even just happened a couple of weeks ago, like with, I think, Chris's character, like, and John's character, like, they were going to die and they needed to roll like over, say, a 13. And they did, and I was like, okay, you're allowed, like, it just kept happening.
It's incredible.
And more importantly, they don't care. Like Seth was like, I'm like, Seth's gonna die. I mean, yes, he doesn't want to die, but he's like, hey man, if I die, I die. It's like they're okay with it. I also wouldn't be like we used to do in the old days, like, oh, you got to start over with level 1 character. I'm like, we'd like,
I remember that.
Right? Like, no, there would be like, we get someone in, we get the cousin in or something. We'll make sure that someone else.
Your character's twin shows up,
right?
Stuff and puts it on.
Exactly.
Well, it is an interesting kind of. You kind of talk about there's sort of Dragonbane, and you've got D&D maybe on the other side of the spectrum, and Pathfinder and Starfinder. I think both are kind of a good middle ground for balancing progression with risk, right? You're never so powerful that you're just mopping the floor with everything. Every encounter, if designed correctly, should be challenging, right?
Yeah.
If level 1, level 10, whereas I think I would say I was kind of not really the outlier. I enjoy Dragonbane, but I will say I played the character I played much differently than maybe I would have if I played that person in D&D. And I kind of did miss the ability to have heroic moments, right? Where you jump off the cliff and land on the dragon's back. And, whereas, so there's, I would say there's good and bad with different kinds of levels of lethality, but my co-host Nathan, like the whole time we played D&D, he would just try to get his character killed as like a protest to like how impossible it is to get killed.
Well, yeah, I actually believe it. That's actually, we were playing Kingmaker and Seth and his wife were playing with me, and they tried to play Pathfinder first edition Kingmaker with characters that would negotiate things. They didn't want to fight. And
they wanted to parlay, did they?
They wanted to parlay, and we tried it, and we actually stopped after the first module at level 4, and they actually suicided their characters. And I actually later, before I was into like the designing, and now Mark Seifter, who literally wrote Pathfinder, is my is my game director of game design. And I actually remember talking to some of the guys, like Eric Moan and stuff, and they're like, yeah, you can't do that. It's like the game is not designed. He says there's other TTRPGs that if you want to play where you can talk your way out of it, this is not one of them. And if you actually can't play it that way. And that's what actually that's when I started to learn a little bit more about TTRPG design, that like this is a combat-based game. And if you do not build your character correctly, not only will it be broken, but you will die. And more importantly, you won't enjoy it. And we learned a lesson. It was actually a good lesson that you got to kind of play the rules of the game. And the rules of the game for Pathfinder is it's very combat heavy. And good news is my guys love combat. In fact, you go more than an hour without combat, they get angry. They're like, okay, where's the fight? Come on. Too much. It's like enough talk from Conan. That's what they always say. Enough talk.
It's funny. Lamentations.
I think in our group, Sean and I'm definitely the mechanics guy, right? Like I like the mechanics of a game. They have to speak to the gameplay, and I like combat because I think that's where mechanics happen, right? That's really. But we have other friends who are like our one guy, Malcolm, who's like, he's more of the story driven, as he puts it.
Very eloquent.
Food is a character, right? He went to the J.R. Tolkien description, school where it's like, he'll talk about every single plate. But so we've talked about getting started with the podcast, right? And with your friends, but and so at some point you guys opened up your aperture outside, I think, of your immediate friend group to some new folks to start a new podcast, right? Or a new story that was Plague Stone.
Yes.
Right.
Plague Stone.
And so what was that like, kind of opening up to folks who were not part of that long-term inner circle?
It was interesting. Like, so I got these people through Param and No Direction. And some of these were No Direction people, like Vanessa Hoskins and Lauren Seg. One of them was my friend. So 3 out of the 4 were friends of friends. So I trusted them. And also, believe it or not, I got some flack because we had all guys on the show. And, which I get it, and this was in 2017 and, things were changing back then. And there was a lot of, guys, just it was like, who wants to see another show full of guys talking about D&D and Pathfinder? And I was like, well, I get it, and you're not wrong, but like these are my friends for 40 years. Like this isn't like a guy group, and like people don't remember, like in the 70s, like it wasn't, or in the 80s, it wasn't like today where like women could just do this stuff. Like I had here's a story. I was in a chess club in high school, and we had this woman who joined the chess club. She was the best one by far, and she was Asian, and her dad made her quit the chess club because it wasn't ladylike. And I was like, wow, and this was very common, and it wasn't that long ago. And then in my day job, my vice president, her name's Tara, and she never used computers or anything related to computers until she went to college, and it was in her mid-20s. And she is like a savant. She's fantastic with computers. She is just a natural. And I was thinking, wow, what a wasted potential. Like, just because of the way culture was and just the way she was brought up, like she wasn't really allowed to like go into geekdom. And not only that, not only was she into computers, but she really was into geekdom. And it's funny because now her kids, I see her, she's like, oh, I was thinking whenever I see my son, I think of you, Stephen, because he's like really into Minecraft and in the video games. Like he's like the total, modern geek. And she is one of those people that became a geek late in life, but she always had it in her. She just wasn't allowed to express it. And this was very common. Like they're just like, I went to Carnegie Mellon. Carnegie Mellon, when I went to school, there was 3 guys to every girl. Okay. It was literally a 70-30 ratio. And that wasn't because there wasn't smart women. They just didn't apply, and that's just the way it was. It was very common. And you go to MIT was like that. You go to Carnegie Mellon was like that. Yeah. These technical schools back in the 80s, this was just the way it was.
Yeah. And the other thing about we did interviews, we did cast interviews, and one of the comments I made is like, in the 80s, you didn't go to the bar and walk up to a lady and go, hey, I got a level 5 paladin. You want to go hang out? Because women didn't think that was cool. It wasn't a cool thing. And it's like I tell the young, it's like anybody who's younger listening, like, yeah, it's cool now. But back then it was like, you didn't talk about you played D&D. You didn't just talk about it. You talked about other stuff.
I tell folks it's really only been since I started doing the podcast. Even as an adult, right, a grown person, I wouldn't talk about it at work.
I never,
because you just don't know the attitudes. I'm open about it now. What's interesting, what you just described, it's funny, we struggle with that too, because our actual gaming group, the one from college, was
much more diverse.
Actually very diverse. Right? Men, women, all different, right? And so and some of them, we have folks who just either moved on. We have folks who have left us, right? We're older. We have people who've left us. And then we have people like, we've got a guy who won't come on the show, right?
We got one.
So we have a larger group, but unfortunately for us too, that first set of folks that came on, it's like you said, we suffered from, the 4 or 5 people that were available to start.
Right.
Very similar, right? But so you brought on some new folks.
I brought in some new folks, and I specifically asked Param, I was like, look, I should mix this up. And then he's like, oh, I know Lauren's great and Vanessa's great. Like, these are women in the hobby and they're great. Like Vanessa works at Wizards. She worked at Paizo and then now works at Wizards of the Coast. So that's where she ended up, and Lauren is still great. She's like the hardest core gamer I know. She's always like, let me know whenever you want to play a game. I'm like, okay. Like she's, and it's just, now it's very different. Obviously it's just, it's like going to a Magic tournament, which is still kind of like this. And you saw a woman at a Magic tournament. It was like, I would go to a Magic tournament.
Strange creature.
Right. No, seriously. Like there would be 2,000 people there and maybe 5 to 10 would be women, And I mean, I know it's uncomfortable for them too, because I've been friendly with them and they feel like sometimes even just weird, but, but now it's obviously a lot more open. But back then, that's why we started the second one, is that I just wanted to start it with the new group, and also the podcast was taking off. And it was interesting because they're really, really into the role playing. So it was a very different group. And it definitely helped me as a game master, because I don't mind the role playing, but like we have famous episodes where we'll spend 3 hours just shopping. But it's funny shopping. Like, well, the funny thing is I cut it. I used to cut the shopping, and then everyone would write me to go, we want to hear it. I'm like, okay. And then I kept adding it, and people loved it. They're like, oh, I love listening to this. Now, keep in mind, these guys are pretty funny when they shop. Like, they weren't like, okay, I'm gonna buy this and do this. Like they're going, and then I would mix it up because like Darius, he would go. He actually had a belt of teleportation, and they were near Absalom. And whenever he went there, he had a groupie. So I would play the groupie, and I made it really uncomfortable for him because he was like in Muscle Fancy magazine and stuff. And she would like bring out old copies and have him sign, and then she would like buy him things and like try to drug him. And I mean, it was a little risque to keep my groups on with this. So, but they're like, you know, and the other characters loved it because they're like, oh, Darius, you got a groupie, and each one of them would have some weirdness. So, you know, it was like really fun, you know, and this is just trying to get, it's like, I'm just trying to shop. I'm just trying to get my stuff. So it's not just, oh, I buy this. Now, funny, my other group, you know, the core group, that's how we do it. If you listen to us, we literally go
what's
down
the stats? How much does it cost?
We literally go down a spreadsheet and do it. And then this other group they will spend hours just shopping, and they love it. And I'm like, yeah, man, whatever you guys like, you know, I can go either way. I can play it however you guys want. And but at the same time, it's funny because you get too much of that, and it's like, okay, we've literally been spending 3 episodes, like, you know, like 8 hours doing nothing. You know, like we haven't moved anything forward. So it can be too much if you go too much into the role play. Nothing's getting done. So
no, that's true.
Definitely.
I think every group runs into that, though. You know, you got to sort of kick.
Right.
Somebody's got to kick everybody on the road.
Yeah,
I think I'm the guy in the group that does that sometimes. Like, okay, it's time to go. We got to go. What? Put it down. Put it down. It's like talking to kids. We got to go. We got to go down this hall. We got to get it done.
Yeah, and so we played. What was that? That episode, the Plague Stone, which is, by the way, so that was the first Pathfinder 2nd edition. And also we were learning Pathfinder 2nd edition adventure, and that's written by Jason Bowman, and that adventure is deadly. So anything written by Jason Bowman is super hard. And these guys, that's actually one of my absolute favorite adventures because those guys were always and then remember, none of us knew how to play Pathfinder 2nd edition. These guys were always on the brink of death. Like it was really like every episode was like, damn,
the first boss, right? It's like just like a guy, right? There's like a bear, like there's a lot of really bad stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff, and they survived, and they did really well. And then we started what was
3 Ring, right?
Yeah, 3 Ring. We didn't finish it because, very long story short, Vanessa Hoskins got a full-time job at WotC, and she's not allowed to do
no Coke, no Pepsi, right?
Yeah, she's kind of disappeared. Like she's not allowed to really do anything because she works for Wizards of the Coast now. So, and you know, that kind of did it, you know. So, and you know, it happens. It's, you know, it's it also that adventure. It's a classic adventure of it wasn't as good as we thought it was going to be because it was billed as a circus adventure, and that's not what it is. It's like something very different.
Okay, because I listened to because I was listening to a bunch of stuff, so I started it, but then I switched over to Agents of Edgewatch.
Yeah, that one.
I'll come back to this one, but the premise was really cool. This idea that you're managing a circus. It sounded like the first couple episodes there is a lot of that, like who's on act, and
it really was.
Does it stray?
Nah, it just disappears after the first book. It's gone. They never really deal with it again, and that's a real problem with that. It becomes a very different thing, and I don't think it's as well written. It's okay. I mean, I know Patrick Rennie wrote it and designed it, and he did my adventure, so I was able to talk them through it. You know, I explained them, you know, what was good and bad. Or no, was that Ron Lundeen? Ron did one. I worked with both of them on my adventure. And then, but Agents of Edgewatch. So Agents of Edgewatch will wrap it up. If we seem to only play once a month now because literally like Chris is at the World Series of Poker right now. So like it's like every week is something. The next week I'm going on vacation. Then like another week Jason goes to like, you know, he goes to the shore. You know, like it's summer. Like everyone's doing something. So and we only play 1 day a week. And we used to be like, oh, you guys like. Every day someone has something, like, so we only have Monday. We used to be able to be like, oh, you do Tuesday, you do Wednesday, Thursday. But when that's done, I'm actually very excited because not a lot of people could say that they wrote their own adventure path, but I'm one of them. It's like I have my own adventure path.
That's what I
wrote.
This is where we're headed.
Right. With Ronald Dean Patrick and Linda Zayas Palmer that I wrote and designed that almost killed me. And I'm running this next. And
Good.
Awesome.
This is only, and it's only level 1. It goes to level 11, but it's 1 through 10 and then ends at 11. So it's not too long. And I don't have to worry about preparing too much for this because I know it.
Yeah, you should know it pretty well, right?
Yes.
So this is a good segue, right?
Yeah, this is a good segue. The next leg, which is you creating something, or you and your friends or group created something. I don't know if you collaborated or not, but
so it's
you created it. Yeah, Matt, if you want to
right. So having listened, so I guess there's created an actual play, right?
Right.
And brought in new folks. And I remember, I think maybe I've missed something, but I think the first kind of creation thing I remember is that you started hosting these, like, I think it was yearly monster challenges.
Yeah. So they used to do something called RPG Superstar at Paizo, and everyone loved it. And everyone always asked when they were bringing it back. And RPG Superstar was very complex. It was like you would submit a magic item, and then after the next round, you would have to submit a monster, and then the next round you would have to submit an encounter, and the next round you'd have to submit a 5-room dungeon, and then eventually the winner was selected, and they would write an adventure, which really wasn't true. They would like help out with an adventure, and then the adventure would be published. But it was a lot of work, and I talked to them about it, and they just stopped doing it because it was too much work. And then I met Eric Mona at PAX Unplugged, and I said, "Hey, man, can I just take that over? Because I have some ideas for it." And he's like, "Okay." So he let me take over the RPG Superstar contest through Paizo, and then I turned it into just a monster contest. And me being building websites for a living, I literally built. You can go to it now, rpgsuperstar.com. You can build a monster for Pathfinder 2nd Edition using a web tool that does pretty much everything for you.
Oh, nice.
It has all the rules in it, and you can make monsters and it prints them out and everything. So I automated the whole thing because that was a big problem. It's like, it took forever. It's all this work. I'm like, it's all automated. It's a whole thing. I built a website. It's all automated. All the voting is automated. The way it votes, it collects votes from the public is automated. Then it automatically separates and filters the monsters, then sends it to the judges, and then it bugs the judges so that they can do their voting. So everything's done. And then the winners of that contest were going to be in this book for the Battles You Bestiary. This book here. They were going to be in this book. And I thought I would just do this, have some fun, just for the hell of it, no other reason. And I was going to sell it at Paizo at Gen Con. And I was like, that was it. It was like, I wasn't going to do anything really with it. I just thought it was fun. And then COVID happened. And I was like, oh. And then literally, so COVID happens. And I was talking to Eric Mona. I'm like, and it was like, he goes, yeah, we're not going to Gen Con this year. I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to Gen Con? I was like, I'm not going to Gen Con. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I need to sell my book. What am I going to do? He's like, I don't know what to tell you, man. No one's like, the world was shutting down. And this is in 2020. I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do? And then all my friends who do Kickstarters were like, just do a Kickstarter. I was like, okay. So I was literally driving for like 2 hours talking to my friends who do Kickstarters, and they're like, yeah, just do it. So I did a Kickstarter. And the Kickstarter had Battles You Bestiary, and then I did too much. I was insane. So I did Battles You Bestiary, and then I did Jewel the Indigo Isles, and then I needed to add so I added 3 books, and then I did Battles You Ancestry Dragons, which is
the dragons thing, right? That's all about playing a dragon.
Yes, to play dragons.
Right?
So I ended up hiring. I was working with Patrick Rennie on the Battles You Bestiary, and I actually was going to hire him. And I was also talking, then I realized, wow, I can really turn this into a business. Oh, and so the Kickstarter did $301,000. And this was my first one. And I was like, uh-oh. I was like, oh boy, now, yeah, I got to actually really do. I'm like, wow, this really took off and it did well, so, and then I was going to hire Patrick. And then Patrick got hired by Wizards of the Coast, so I couldn't hire him. And then I hired Mark Seifter, and Thank God I did, because that was actually a big deal. But I know Paizo wasn't thrilled because he's like the guy. And he came to me with the idea of a dragon book. Mark always wanted to do a dragon book. And he's like, we'll do a tiny book of 16 pages. And I'm like, no. I was like, it's like, you're going to be working with me. You don't know, like, we always go way above and beyond. And he's like, oh, I'll have like 5 or 10 dragons. I'm like, no, 45 dragons, 100. How many is this? 134 page, book of how to play dragons with 200 illustrate, whatever. So it's like every page is an illustration, literally every page. And he's like, oh my God, I just want to do like a little 16-page book. Meanwhile, it's our bestseller, by the way.
Nice.
It's like number 22 all time on the Foundry list. So Battles of Bestiary and Dragons are number 22 and number 23, all time best-selling Foundry modules ever. So give you an idea. Yeah, they're very popular. Up to our 3rd printings already, and it's only been a few years. And at the time, I just said, wow, I can do this. And so I did both. I still run my company where I build websites, but I'll be honest, COVID kind of it almost killed me, but not in the way you think it is. I work with pharma, and so imagine working with pharma during COVID, and those are all my biggest clients. And I was working with Gilead, and oh my God, I was stressed in the other way, because a lot of people I know that, I mean, I'm not complaining, but it was like people were losing jobs, and I know it was like really bad. I had to quadruple in size because I was so much work, and it was just so stressful. I was working my brains out while I was doing this, and I was like making these books and running the Kickstarter, and it almost broke me. It was just like, oh my God. And like and just the stress of COVID, and it was just so much. And then
that's crazy though, that you just
it was so much.
It was so much, but you got through it, and look what you got now though. It's crazy. It's like a lot of really quality.
Yeah.
One, it's something obviously you have a passion for, you to enjoy, and it's become such a great thing in your life, and for everybody else, because obviously they like it. People are enjoying it because you're on your 3rd edition of the one book.
Yeah.
So that's great. I mean, that's pretty inspiring, actually.
Yeah. Well, what I was just saying, what ended up happening is after it was all said and done, I kind of sat back and I was like, well, which did I enjoy, more? And I was like, you know what? It was like, well, no, I was like, you know what? It was like really horrible and stressful and all this, but I'm like, yeah, but it's just so much fun. And like, also, it was just like, wow, I'm actually doing, like, I like think about it. Like you started off playing D&D as a kid, and now we're making this stuff that people are playing. I mean, this just happened to me. So the first time I ever had a booth, I just had a booth at PAX East for the first time. I never did a booth before. And I was sitting there, and there's all these people that are coming up and literally taking my book and buying it and handing me money. And I'm just
this
looking.
Real?
I know. It's real? Like, you guys are paying me for this stuff? Like, it's like, really? And yeah,
what have I been doing with my life?
Yeah. No, it's weird. True. I mean, I usually don't have imposter syndrome, but that was a little imposter syndrome, just a little. Like, I was like, wow. It's like, you guys, it's like, it's really kind of strange. And so, now I still like, it's a lot of fun. And more importantly, also with COVID going on, and there was so much death, and it was just so horrible in so many ways. And like
a lot of negativity.
And a lot of negativity. And this was just, it was just making people happy. And, it was just so much positivity and adding to people's lives. And just like, I thought, I'd rather do this, so this is what I do now most of my time. I still do the other stuff, believe me. Not as much though, not nearly as much.
I think the COVID was probably the catalyst for our podcast. And it was for many of the same reasons. A lot of us had been sent home from work. Our kids were home from school. We're trying to figure out what to do. And we had literally started playing online against the Giants. One of our friends was running that, and I remember joining. They'd been playing for a while, and I joined them, and I was like, "Wow, these VTTs are actually working." right? Like we had tried, I think what you'd meant D20 or whatever it was, like years ago to try to play some early Star Wars game, and it was a disaster, right? Everything was laggy. But we were using Roll20, and it was like, hey, this is really working great. And they've only gotten better, and we kind of bounce around a lot between Foundry and a few other, different topics. But yeah, I think it was that being isolated and trying to find kind of have like togetherness, kinship, do something that distracts you from all the stuff going on.
It also helped that Nathan had this degree he had in like audio visual. So he was great for insight in how we do it.
Yeah, let's preface, unlike your group, our group is not technically
we are not.
Except for Nathan and Chris.
Yeah, and Chris is big IT person. So
like, now we're all we're all technically savvy, so it's not really been an issue.
but that was for us, and that's how we did it and how we rolled into it. And the biggest, I think we played so much, we had enough experience. But it was for us since you've done podcasting, was like talking over each other. The little cues you go,
all the things you learn.
So you don't have to edit as much because we do a lot more live stuff right now, and you can tell that we sort of cut each other off, like not cut each other, like we know when to not step on somebody when they start talking, like they're doing their piece, like not having a side conversation at the table while somebody's doing something. I don't know if that doesn't seem to be a problem for you. It was a problem for us at the beginning. So
no, our guys, we've gotten pretty good. And also, again, well, I'll tell you why, because we played MMOs and MMOs had push to talk, and we would do 40-person raids. And, so we're used to this stuff, right? So when
it's a good skill to learn,
right? Yes. I mean, it's weird. It's like it's like okay, learning how to talk through raids, and Crystal plays weekly.
That's insightful.
Raids 2 to 3 times a week. Like, there's a lot of etiquette when it comes to raiding and talking and push to talk and not talking to each other. So we learned it from that.
That's great. That's a great skill to transfer over, And so one thing I want to catch on, because we got like 8 minutes left, is your some of your topics in your more recent podcasts with the group has been about like more like a commentary. Like I'll use the one you just put out. You were talking about the new system. Crap, I already forgot what it is.
Daggerheart.
Because there's so many dragon systems that came up, which is very. You were talking about Dragonheart, and it sort of makes a lot of sense though. With somebody with a lot of experience, how's that commentary? Do you enjoy that sort of?
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
So what happened was. It was interesting. So, as people don't know, it's like I'm the one who broke the OGL. We were a day before Kotaku. We were a day before Linda Kodega. We did it live in the air, so you can watch it. You can see the whole thing happen. It's happened right then and there. Like, I won't get into. We don't have enough time. It's a very long story. Very long story short, we broke it, and then what happened was there's a lot going on. We were talking behind the scenes. I was talking to all the other people. And I realized that no one wanted to be the quote adult in the room, I called it, because a lot of the other people who did this are in their 20s or 30s, and none of them work professionally in this industry or have lawyers and things like that. I'm like, okay, my day job is literally building Fortune 500 websites. I have lawyers. I work in Manhattan. I am not scared of these people. I am not scared of this industry. This is literally my bread and butter. Like, this is all I deal with are billion and trillion dollar companies every day for 30 years. So I'll take care of this. And I did, like, okay, no one wants to go in charge. And then my lawyer, he came on the show. The very next day we went through the OGL, and then I got Ryan Dancy on, and, I'm like, look, we are really going to take this on. And we were the only ones with the voice of like reason, and more importantly, I have a lot of business experience working with these type of companies. And as just yesterday, I was saying, like, I have a lot, because people were talking about quote the new OGL and Daggerheart. I have my contract folder. I have 410 contracts, and that's only for like the last 10 years. That's how many contracts I've signed.
Wow.
It's like
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I'm used to this, so I can talk about it. In fact, I'm gonna have my lawyer come on and we'll look at the contract. So this has really become our niche. As Professor Dungeon Master said, we're like the 60 Minutes of gaming. And that's fine. I like this niche because you need to have experience and life experience. And, I don't know how many other people will really want to do this. I'm sure there's others in the industry. There are a few here and there. Ian World's pretty good. They know a lot of stuff. I listen to Morris all the time. He knows his stuff. And, but Ryan Dancy knows his stuff, but I don't know how often he's doing podcasts. There's a few others that aren't doing a weekly show. And that's sort of what our weekly show has become. Like, we're not going to talk about how to build the best, barbarian. We're not going to talk about any of that stuff. So we talk more about the business aspect and the future of D&D. That's really become our big thing. The other thing is I also predicted, it's my big joke, is we predicted 100% accurately. I was like, they're not coming out with a new edition. It's going to be one D&D and all this. And then literally every single thing word for word that I said like 9 months later was exactly. It was identical to the point of it was weird. Like they called it one D&D. They actually said it's not a new edition. I was like, and then after that, we got a lot of street cred because they're like, oh my God, these guys knew what was going on. I'm like, yes. I'm like, not really. Because I was like, I've been working in professionally for 30 years with companies like this. Yeah. I know how they work.
It gives you, you can forecast by looking at history and looking, Exactly. And that's a good insightful thing. Like sometimes on this show, we do a little commentary and stuff, but obviously we have different backgrounds. Mine's more in law enforcement. Matt's is in a different direction.
Right.
And, but we talk about using our experience and, but sometimes when people redo a game, I mean, like we're talking about how many times can you reinvent the same wheel, which is D&D.
Right.
So is it really going to be that much different? Or why are you doing it? You're doing it for money or to make it better? I mean, those are the type of conversations we have. When the OGL stuff came out, we were very we had our concerns, but we didn't know the details. And I think I remember reading or seeing something. I think it was you. The briefing, the first thing coming out talking about it. I may have saw a clip of that.
It was me.
Yeah, it was you because it had to be you. Now I think about. I remember just reading it and we're watching it and going, huh. And then, we immediately were talking about it. I didn't follow up with anything because I was too busy in my life at the time doing other stuff.
It only lasted 3 weeks.
It only lasted 3 weeks. It was gone.
Trust me, those 3 weeks felt like 10 years. I remember.
I did, right?
It felt so long.
Yeah,
it's the longest 3 weeks of my life.
Yeah, and then we were talking about because our group does as you know, we do different games. We just don't stick to one.
Right.
But I think that's really cool that the way, because, I was listening to your commentary. You guys do have a lot of credibility. You definitely have the knowledge. You did experience. And it was really interesting because listening, because Matt, we talk about our guests before they come on. I don't know everybody have the connections that him or Nathan have. Mm-hmm. So I always like to glean a little bit about our guests. And I thought it was look at this. This is a little different. And I think there's some future in that for you. And I think it's going to take you some places.
It's going to take you places, kid.
Yeah. Well, and plus between the two, now the show's a good mix. Well, because I have the business experience working in ad agencies and Fortune 500s and all this, and obviously still in gaming, but Mark wrote Pathfinder 2nd edition. He has over 200 books published.
Oh, that's amazing.
In his name. He has an encyclopedic, memory. You can ask anything on any topic and he knows it. And so he is the game design man. So you want to talk about TTRPGs, he's the guy. And now Derek, who's pretty much become the regular on the show, he is he's like the everyman, but he's played everything. He reads every single book. He's also very, very smart. And he also has a very practical, down the earth, realistic approach. He's more I'd almost say Mark and I are almost a little too detached from things sometimes, but Derek isn't. So he brings that more earthy, down on the ground feel. So the three of us, I think, really do a nice show.
It gives legitimacy, definitely. You need that. Yeah. Because if you don't have legitimacy, nobody's going to buy it.
So we have one of everybody on our show.
Yeah, you do. I believe you do.
So clearly this is the hour goes by too quick, right? There's so much more we could talk about.
We just started.
I would just say for folks, I know there's a lot of deep dive and stuff. So what I would say is just for folks who are listening, who may not have listened to these, even if you've listened to the same adventure path, and I'll tell you, as someone who listened to Dead Sons, both by Roll for Combat and by Glass Cannon, you would think, why would you listen to the same adventure path twice, right? And they were both very different experiences. I enjoyed the heck out of both of them. I just want to leave with so Stephen, given all of this experience, now what are some of the blue water opportunities and challenges, or sorry, what are some of the opportunities and challenges for the TTRPG kind of creator community, both print, actual play? Like where do you see things moving to? What are some golden opportunities that people are either not taking yet or should or will be? And what are some of the things that maybe, and maybe not even a challenge, but a lesson learned so that other people don't have to crawl over the same broken glass that you guys did, learning and being kind of pioneers for this.
And in 5 words or less.
5 words.
No, just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I don't. Wow, that's hard. I mean,
it is hard.
I would say right now, don't bite off more you can chew. One of the big things I saw, which I feel really bad for, is that there was a lot of people who were coming out with. They would start and just do a very small, game that's like an OSR type game that then they're going to put out a box set and they do a Kickstarter and they make like $150,000. Sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. And then now suddenly with the tariffs and what's going on, it's like they're not going to make any money, and it's like, in fact, Professor DM's coming out with, his Deathbringer, and he and I were talking because he's like, well, can I really do, he just said it on his latest show. It's like, can I really do a box set anymore? Because he wanted to do one like Mothership. And I'm like, no, not really. I mean, it's like the tariff. It was like, you can't do it in America. And even if you do, let me tell you, it's not cheaper. That's the thing. People are like, oh, do it in America. It's not cheaper here. It's more expensive here. It's actually it's more expensive than it used to be getting it from China, but it's still expensive. And, you can do it, but it's going to be a $200 box set, which would used to be $100 box set. And, that's really the issue, is that, if you're going to do something, just do some books. Believe it or not, that's what I learned. Like, you add all these tchotchkes and you add all that crap, and it makes the Kickstarter become like $1 million, and no one cares. Like, no one cares about that stuff. It's like, just like, do the Shadow Dark. Shadow Dark's Kelsey, perfect example. She did a book. She did some character sheets. She did some adventures. That's it. And that's all you need. So start off simple. Yeah.
So there's an acronym used in Marines. It was keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, especially now with tariffs.
Yeah.
It's going to get very expensive if you try to do anything outside of a book. Unfortunately, I mean, that might change, but for now, it's like sucks.
No, you're right. And on those words of wisdom, we're going to call it a night. Stephen, is there anything you'd like to promote, or besides what you've already promoted?
Yeah. Well, just go to battlezoo.com or rollforcombat.com. That's our online store where you can see all of our products. You could also go to shadowdark.rollforcombat.com. We're doing our Shadow Dark Kickstarter next month. And I mean, actually, we have Shadow Dark's assistant, Kelsey's assistant, is writing all the books, more or less. So he's designed almost everything, as well as me and Mark. And I'm going to have a contest where you can design your own Shadow Dark dungeon. And we're going to have 3 winners have their dungeons published. And we're going to run them at Gen Con and Origins for people. So How about that for cool? So people are going to be like, oh my God. And like, we've done this before. So that's coming out in July. And we'll be at Gen Con. We have a booth at Gen Con. And we have a booth at PAX West right now. So you can meet me. You can meet Mark. We're going to have some secret guests coming. Yeah, I'm going to have we're going to have a big panel of like everyone who will be there. I know Professor Dungeon Master is going to come by and he'll sign things for people.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I like watching his show too.
Yeah, he's really nice.
So, everybody, I want to thank Stephen for coming on, and please check out Roll for Combat. Literally go on YouTube, type Roll for Combat. If those of you who can't get our banners, and you'll see the shows. The commentary shows are great. You get a little bit of it. It's very insightful, I find. I want to see more of them. And anyway, wait a minute. What's this comment? If you want to battle the role, you have to.
Yes. Nice. That's our closing tagline.
That's good. Well, there we go. I got it up there. Anyway, we wish you all the best and good night. Everybody say good night.
Night.
All right.